Good afternoon, and thank you guys for joining us this afternoon on the Developing a School Travel Plan webinar as part of the We Thrive Community and Ambassador Capacity Building Training. My name is Mary Ellen Kramer. I'm a senior health educator here with Hamilton County Public Health, and Hannah Smith, who is a health educator, is also going to be presenting with me today. So we welcome you, and we're excited that you're here. We're going to go ahead and get started. If you have questions, you can type them in the chat box, which is on the left side of your screen, and at the end of the presentation, we'll have an opportunity for Q&A over the phone as well. If you have any challenges or can't hear us or whatnot, please type into the chat box, and we will try to identify and fix those challenges as we go along. So we have 3 learning goals for today's presentation. The first one is participants will understand the Safe Routes to School program within the state of Ohio. Participants will learn the key steps in developing a school travel plan. And lastly, participants will learn about the Ohio Department of Transportation resources that are available to help support the development of a school travel plan, as well as to help implement a Safe Routes to School program within your community.
Okay, we'll start by giving a general overview of the Safe Routes to School initiative and then dive deeper into the details of creating a school travel plan. So let's get started. The Safe Routes to School initiative creates environments to support and encourage students K through 8 to walk or bike to school. Students have multiple opportunities to walk and bike to school that are safe and fun, and the ultimate goal of Safe Routes is to increase the number of kids that are walking and biking to school safely. The Safe Routes to School initiative is also a great way for kids to get physical activity and energy out before and after school. So what's the importance and significance of Safe Routes to School? Within the span of a generation, the percent of students walking or biking to school has decreased from 50% in 1969 to 13% in 2009. Distance is often cited as the most common barrier. However, private vehicles still account for half of school trips between a quarter and a half mile away. So what this tells us is that there's been a significant drop in kids walking and biking to school, even if they live nearby. And this is a great issue because this means that kids are not getting a lot of physical activity, which is potentially harmful to their health. So why is this important? Kids are less active today than ever, and 23% of children get no free time to play or get physical activity. The prevalence of obesity, as we all know, is so great that today's generation of children may be the first in over 200 years to live less healthy and shorter lifespans than their parents. It's pretty shocking. High rates of obesity and low levels of physical activity also mean that more than half of African American girls are expected to get diabetes. So how does this relate to academic performance? Walking a mile to and from school each day is 2/3 of the recommended 60 minutes from the CDC. Children who walk to school and have higher levels of physical activity throughout the day in general. Physical activity and fitness boost learning and memory in children, and this is especially true for students who have the hardest time paying attention or have ADHD. Also, kids who fidget and can't pay attention in class, it's very helpful for them. And it's been proven that lower performing students appear to get significant benefit from physical activity as it increases academic performance. So now we're going to dive even deeper into the 6 E's of the Safe Routes to School initiative, which encompass the bulk of the school travel plan. So I'm going to go through and explain each one of the 6 E's, which is engineering, education, encouragement, enforcement, evaluation, and equity. The 6 E's provide education along with engineering and infrastructure improvements near schools, as well as encouragement, enforcement, and evaluation. Whether someone is traveling on heels or wheels, we want everyone to arrive at school safely. Engineering strategies create safer environments for walking and biking to school through improvements to the infrastructure surrounding schools. These improvements focus on reducing motor vehicle speeds in conflict with pedestrians and bicyclists, as well as establishing safer and fully accessible crossings, walkways, trails, and bikeways. Education programs target children, parents, caregivers, and neighbors to teach them how to walk and bike safely, while also informing drivers on how to drive more safely around pedestrian and bicyclists. Education programs can also incorporate personal security issues, as well as health and environmental messages. Encouragement activities promote walking and biking to school to children, parents, and community members. Events such as a walk to school day or bike to school day are very helpful. Contests such as a frequent walker or bicyclist challenge are beneficial, as well as ongoing programs such as a walking school bus or bicycle train can promote and encourage walking and bicycling as a popular way to get to school. Enforcement strategies increase the safety of children bicycling and walking to school by helping to change unsafe behaviors of drivers, as well as pedestrians and bicyclists. A community approach to enforcement involves students, parents, or caregivers, school personnel, crossing guards, and law enforcement officers. Oftentimes, people associate enforcement just with police officers, but this really is a school and community approach to get more people involved. Evaluation is another important component of the Safe Routes to School program that can be incorporated into each of the other E's. Collecting information before and after program activities or projects are implemented allows communities to track progress and outcomes and provide information to guide the program development and moving forward. And equity is the most recent E to be added to the initiative, and it works to support safe, active, and healthy opportunities for children and adults in low-income communities, communities of color, and beyond. It's very important to incorporate equity concerns throughout the other E's to understand and address obstacles, create access, and ensure safe and equitable outcomes for every child. So that was a basic overview of the 6 E's, and now we're going to dive into some specific potential strategies relating to each that you could apply to your community and school. So for engineering, as we said, it creates safer environments for walking and biking to school through infrastructure improvements. And some potential strategies are improvements to sidewalks, either creating them or making improvements to existing sidewalks, increasing stop signs, having crosswalk enhancements, so repainting generic ones or making them more artistic and fun, which also makes them more visible to drivers. Improvements to signage, traffic lighting, and timing, as well as ramps, speed bumps, things of that nature. As we know, these types of improvements enhance safety for all users no matter their ability. So this is, as we said before, people on heels or wheels, which includes people in wheelchairs as well. We want to make sure everybody's included. So education efforts increase knowledge of how to walk or bike to school safely and how to drive safely around pedestrians and bicycles. Some potential strategies include an Every Move You Make lesson plans, which is an ODOT campaign to teach kids that every move they make has consequences, both good and bad. General traffic safety information is helpful. You can host a bicycle rodeo, which teaches children skills and precautions of riding their bicycle safety. And this gives kids a chance to practice either through an obstacle course or any sort of way where they can practice the skills that they've learned. How to fit your helmet education, making sure that helmets are put on properly and how to check if your helmet's on properly. Education regarding the importance of obeying traffic speeds and how to cross the street, looking both ways, etc. The target audience for education can be students, parents, caregivers, neighbors, and drivers. And a focus on education is always an important component for programs that seek to alter cultural norms. As we know, change can be hard, but part of this education is to make people realize how important this physical activity and safety is for children. Safe Routes to School is a multidisciplinary in nature, and therefore there are tons of opportunities, as the ones we listed, for parents, school staff, and students to learn. Encouragement activities that promote walking or biking to school to children, parents, and community members. Some potential strategies with these include walking to school events. You can have a walking school bus, which is a group of children that walk with one or more adults and can be as informal as two families taking turns walking their kids to school, or can be a more formal, planned route with meeting points and a schedule for trained volunteers. There's the Fire Up Your Feet program, which is a core program of the Safe Routes to School National Partnership that encourages families, students, and schools to work together and create active lifestyles that inspire all children to be healthy and physically active. The key word here is lifestyles. You really want to make that sort of change. It's centered on the school day, and their website, fireupyourfeet.org, provides a full range of age-appropriate resources and educational materials to encourage physical activity to and from school. And these online resources are available to any school or PTA, PTO group in the country. And we'll go into the resources a little bit later in the presentation as well. You can also create walking clubs, which are an easy, inexpensive way to encourage children to walk by keeping track of their mileage and rewarding them for being more physically active. A walking club gets students and staff excited about making walking a part of their daily routine and can have long-lasting effects. Kids can also do a safety pledge, which gives parents and high school students, encourages them to sign a pledge that they will avoid distracted driving, drive at a safe speed, and abide by traffic laws, especially during school arrival and dismissal times. And there also are tactics geared towards young students that have them sign a pledge to practice safe walking and bicycling behaviors. As we know, with phones and technology, a lot of times there is distracted walking, so we just really want kids to be present and know how that affects their safety. The act of signing a pledge encourages awareness of safe traveling habits and is very beneficial to students and drivers. Enforcement increases the safety of children biking and walking to school by changing unsafe behaviors of both drivers and pedestrians. Some potential strategies here are adult crossing guards. So having crossing guards safely guide children across intersections near schools is very important. The main components of a successful crossing guard program are location, training, equipment, and funding. Having crossing guards is a good way to counteract parental fears, especially of stranger danger, and create safer routes for students to travel on their way to and from school. Personal safety enforcement is with local police departments who work to make neighborhoods more walkable and bikeable for students and improve their personal safety by having a presence during arrival and dismissal when students are traveling between home and school. Having police officers present helps prevent stranger danger, deters crime and bullying, cleans up graffiti, uses gang task forces, deals with stray dogs, and keeps local parks safe for children to play in. These types of measures instill confidence among students and parents and allows them to actually be safe. Safe passage routes are areas where crime is a concern. Adult volunteers can monitor and report criminal activity during school arrival and dismissal times. This formal observation along designated walking and biking routes supports safer environments for students, and it is often coordinated in conjunction with crossing guards, law enforcement, or block watch programs around schools. Speed trailers and radar speed signs show drivers how fast they are going with the goal of slowing drivers down. They collect speed data throughout the day and conduct traffic counts. I'm sure most of you have seen these one way or another around the communities or on the highway. This information is used to deter speeding as well as to identify times during the day when more enforcement is needed. Each highway patrol district in Ohio has a speed trailer that local jurisdictions can request. And lastly, no idling policies are very important for students, parents, and school staff, as well as bus drivers who are exposed to air and noise pollutants in front of schools. The exhaust from idling buses and cars also enters the air inside the school building through windows, open doors, and the ventilation systems. Creating and enforcing effective regulations that restrict idling while parents wait for their children to be dismissed from school minimizes exhaust, which exacerbates asthma and existing allergies. No idling policies are also better for the environment. As we know, they do contribute to some climate change issues. Evaluation is an important component of Safe Routes to School programs that's incorporated in all of the other E's. It allows communities to track their progress and outcomes and just get some feedback about what they're doing. So the potential strategies here are parent surveys, and these help to identify the reasons why parents are driving their children to school instead of allowing them to walk or bicycle. We really want to get the parents' input here. They also provide insight into what changes might encourage a shift in their behavior. Student surveys elicit the attitudes of youth and help demonstrate how to craft a program that will be appealing to the younger generation. We want kids to be excited about going to school. This isn't just another program that they're going to not look forward to. We want to get their point of view as well. Repeated surveys after the initiatives are implemented measures how successful changes in behavior have been, as well as what needs to be improved. There's also student in-class travel tallies, which take a baseline measurement of the number of students who walk, bike, carpool, take the bus, or get a ride to school from a caregiver or neighbor. The tallies help gauge the effects of non-infrastructure programs on student travel choices, and these should be administered over the course of several days in September through May each school year and include a record of the weather on the day of the tally. Over time, these provide quantitative results to show the impact of the initiative. Pedestrian and bicycle counts. Unlike tallies that are taken in the classroom, these pedestrian and bicycle counts quantify travel at physical street locations. Pedestrian and bicycle counts taken before implementing initiatives provide a baseline of overall numbers and trends. The relative effectiveness of the solutions is evaluated based on the periodic pedestrian and bicycle counts conducted by the school or local government. So basically, this is just saying who is biking and walking to school already. Traffic infraction speeds and crime and crash data are useful data collected by law enforcement and local governments that comparisons are made regarding traffic, crime, and safety data from before and after implementation of walking and biking initiatives. And this is a way to evaluate walking and biking programs' overall impact on the community. And lastly, you want to review district and school policies. Annually reviewing the district's and participating schools' policies to ensure they continue to encourage walking and biking to school is necessary. If they already have great policies and drop-off and pick-up policies, that's great. We just want to keep those. But if they're not, it's a good time to review those to make changes. Equity is also a very important part of the 6 E's, and it works to support safe, active, and healthy opportunities for all students. Equity should be incorporated into all of the E's. Ensuring that Safe Routes to School initiatives are benefiting all demographic groups is what we're meaning by equity here, with particular attention to ensuring safe, healthy, and fair outcomes for students with disabilities, low-income students, Native American students, students of color, female students, LGBTQ students, students whose families speak another language other than English, homeless students, and any other demographic groups that may be vulnerable. So what do we mean by equity? We gave you a little bit of information there, but equity recognizes that different people have different barriers in living healthy, fulfilled lives. As we know, we all don't start off with the same opportunities or resources. In order to allow people to get the same outcome, we need to understand the different barriers and opportunities that affect different groups and craft our policies, programs, and overall approaches with those various challenges and needs in mind. Equity addresses the power imbalances and lived differences that are all too often generate disparities in health, education, and career outcomes for different people, effects that often emerge along lines of race, ethnicity, class, gender, sexual orientation, and disability. And so a lot of times people get equity and equality mixed up because they sound the same, and most people think they have the same definition, but equality is often understood as giving everyone the same thing, while equity means ensuring that each person has access to what they need to thrive. Examples that help us understand why that difference matters. Equality has been described as giving everyone a pair of shoes, while equity is making sure that those shoes fit. So what does it mean to include equity into all of the 6 E's? Equity needs to be built into each aspect of a comprehensive Safe Routes to School initiative. In other words, each E needs to include equity in its analysis and action items to make sure that every child, no matter their race, class, ability, etc., will be entitled to the same things. But equity also needs to be considered separately to ensure that the overall effects of individual considerations are adding up to a meaningful and sufficient investment in the safety and health of low-income students, students of color, and others.
Now that you have a basic understanding or kind of an introduction to the Safe Routes to School program in Ohio and the 6 E's, we're going to briefly talk and introduce the school travel plan. So the school travel plan is the starting point for any Safe Routes to School program within Ohio. It's a written document outlining a community's or school's Safe Routes to School initiative. It provides the framework for your Safe Routes to School program. It can be updated and modified as needed to align with the community and school's values and goals, and it must include all 6 of the E's that Hannah just reviewed. An approved school travel plan is required to receive funding from the Ohio Department of Transportation, or ODOT. So once the school travel plan is developed and approved, schools and communities now have the ability to apply for the non-infrastructure dollars and infrastructure grant dollars every year. And these are the dollars that help to really implement the program and implement some of the changes that you're looking to make within the community. Having the school travel plan is, even if you don't ever think you're going to apply for funding from ODOT or you're not eligible, we still recommend that communities and schools walk through this process. Like I mentioned, it really outlines the Communities and Schools Safe Routes to School initiative, and it gives you a jumping off point of where to start and identifies the kind of major concerns and issues within your community. Within Ohio, there are 2 ways that you can go about completing the school travel plan. You can work through the school travel plan on your own, and we'll kind of go through what that means in the coming up slides, as well as utilize resources from the Ohio Department of Transportation. Or every year, in the beginning of the year, you can, ODOT opens up their Safe Routes to School grant application, and you can apply for a grant to receive assistance from the Ohio Department of Transportation, as well as a consultant to write your school travel plan. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk through the 7 key steps in developing your school travel plan. As you complete each of these steps within your school and community, you will truly then have your school travel plan developed and ready to go. So what are these 7 steps? I'm just going to read them briefly because then we're going to jump in and actually talk through and walk through each of these 7 steps. So first, you want to identify the target schools. And remember, in Ohio, the Safe Routes to School initiative focuses on K through 8. So what are those elementary, middle, or intermediate schools that you might want to target, and organize a Safe Routes to School team. Next, you'll want to hold a kickoff meeting and set a vision for your Safe Routes to School initiative. You'll gather information on current student travel. You'll identify the key issues. You'll develop countermeasure recommendations to address those key issues, get public input, and then finalize the plan and get pledges of support. So Hannah and I are now going to dive into each of these steps for you so that you can see them in more detail.
So obviously the first step is identifying target schools and organizing that team. Who do you want to work on? What school do you think has the highest need in your community? So as we stated, Safe Routes to School can be implemented in any K through 8 public schools, and up to 4 schools can be included in one school travel plan. If you want to include more schools in that, you'll have to reach out to ODOT and get special permission for that. Identifying potential schools, you want to look at what's currently has walkers and bikers traveling to school in unsafe conditions, have potential to encourage or increase walking or bicycling to school if conditions were improved, and schools that need non-infrastructure improvements. So you're really kind of evaluating what would be the best process and have the most benefits for schools. If you're doing all this work and it's not really going to benefit the school, then it's kind of a waste of time. And that's why you really just want to do some research and figure out who you want to target. You also want to have champions at school that support the Safe Routes to School initiative because, as we know, working together is a lot easier and will help make the process run smoothly. Then you'll want to create a Safe Routes to School team. And the Safe Routes to School team must include at least one representative from each of the 5 E's. So someone from engineering, education, encouragement, enforcement, and evaluation. So the team must include a representative from each of the following categories. So someone from the school, whether it's a principal, a superintendent, passionate teacher or administrator, someone from the community, someone from local government, someone involved in health, education, and public safety. Once you form a team, you'll want to hold a kickoff meeting and set a vision to make sure everybody's on the same page. And the kickoff meeting can build a strong foundation for the school travel plan and reinforce key stakeholder interests and commitment to the initiative. You'll want to establish a vision for the Safe Routes to School program, and you want to think big with this. What does the team envision for the school and surrounding community in the next 5 years? What are really those key issues you want to address within the initiative? And then you'll want to end by generating next steps to move forward.
The third step is to gather information on current student travel. So there's a couple of different questions that we want to answer during this step. The first question being, how many students live within walking and bicycling distance to the school? So to do this, we want to map how close students live to the school. And ODOT has resources to help create that map for you. So what the school would do would get together a list of addresses that are de-identified, don't have the student's name, and send those to ODOT to create a map. And so then you'll get a map with the school in the center, and then a quarter mile, half mile, 1 mile, and 2 mile rings around so that you can see where students are located. The next question you want to answer is how many students currently walk or bike to school? And so you answer this question through the completion of the student travel tally that Hannah talked about during the evaluation E component. So during the student travel tally, it's a 3-day survey that happens in class. And I actually have an example of the survey that I'll show you in a minute. The next question that you want to look at, or questions, is does your school or district have any policies that affect the walking and bicycling to school? So does your school allow students to bike to school? Do you have policies that prohibit that? Do you have policies that may prohibit them from walking, or that they're required to ride the bus? So really looking at those policies to make sure that the district and the school support safe routes to school and support the students who want to walk or bike to school. You'll also want to review the school arrivals and dismissal process. And so during this process, there's some key answers within the guidance document that you'll answer. But what you're looking at is, are bus riders and walkers dismissed at the same time? Do they have staggered, that walkers leave first and then the bus riders are dismissed? Are the bus riders and walkers dismissed from different doors? So all of these things impact the safety of the walkers and or the students who are biking to school. And so during this stage, we're just gathering information so that we can better understand what that process looks like. And then one of the last questions is, how do parents and caretakers feel about their children or students walking and bicycling to school? And so you'll get answers to this through completing the parent survey. Again, Hannah mentioned this while talking about the evaluation E, and I have kind of a copy of the the parent survey that we'll go over in a minute. Some of the other questions that you might want to think of or information you might want to gather at this point include, have there been any specific safety incidents or concerns relative to students walking or bicycling to school in recent history? And you can actually get traffic crash information from the ODOT Safe Routes to School website. So this will let you know how many crashes have been within a mile of the school, how many of those have involved pedestrians, how many have involved a bicyclist. And then, does the school currently conduct any activities that support or encourage walking and bicycling to school? So is the school doing anything? And it's okay if it's not, but it's a good time just to look and ask that question to gather all of the needed information. So these are pictures of the student tally survey and the parent survey. So the student tally survey will help measure how students get to school and whether the Safe Routes to School program affects trips to and from school after it's been implemented. So teachers use this information to record how the students walk and bike to school on 3 given days within a week. So at the beginning of the school day, after all the kids are in the class, the teacher asks, how many students walked today? Those who walked raised their hands. How many rode a bus? Those who were bus riders raised their hands. How many were dropped off? Etc. You get the point. And then they ask, how are you getting home? So what is the plan to get home? And so that information is tallied, and you're able to see the percent of bikers or the percent of walkers, the percent who rode the bus. And then you can see changes from pre to after you've implemented programs. The parent survey asks for information about what factors affect whether parents allow their children to walk or bike to school, the presence of key safety-related conditions along their routes to school, and related background information. So the survey asks, do you let your student walk or bike to school? Why or why not? There's a list of concerns ranging from violence to traffic to unsafe conditions to intersections, speed along the route, too far, and parents can say, yes, that's why I don't let my kid walk to school. The route's too far, or I'm worried about speed, or I'm worried about violence, whatever their concerns are. Being able to understand the parents' concerns can then help when you're creating your Safe Routes to School program so that you know how to address those concerns and make sure that those concerns are met so that when you actually kind of implement the program, parents are going to let their kids walk and bike to school because they feel it's safe. You have 2 options when completing both of the student tally and the parent survey. You can download them from the Safe Routes to School National Database, National Data Network, and then have them fill it out, and then you can actually create an account and enter the data yourself. The process is pretty straightforward in terms of entering the database into the National Center, and we actually at Hamilton County Public Health have a guide to help you enter the data into the online database. Or you can mail your completed surveys to the Safe Routes to School National Center, and they will scan and enter the information for you. The downside to this is that it can take 6 to 8 weeks for you to be able to get your report. And so if you're working on a timeline when developing your school travel plan, that may not be an option. You may need to actually enter it yourself. So just keep that in mind that there are both options. We've worked with communities that have entered all of the data by themselves. It takes minimal time. You get an instant report. The online database that you use is pretty user-friendly, and we have plenty of experience in it and can definitely help and provide support throughout the process. So the 4th step is to identify key issues. A critical first step for any Safe Routes to School program is to become familiar with the current walking and bicycling environment at the school. In step 3 that we just discussed, you gathered information that painted a picture of the current process regarding student travel. Here in step 4, you will explore this process a bit further by actually observing them firsthand and discussing, both within your Safe Routes to School team and with other stakeholders possible issues impacting students' ability to walk or bicycle to school. So what this means is that you're going to go out and you are going to do a walking audit. So with the support of the school, you're going to identify a couple students who are walkers and get permission to follow them on their way home. So on your walk home, you want to look at the safety issues. Is it safe? Where are the students crossing? Are there crosswalks? Are there sidewalks? Are the sidewalks in good condition? So lots of different things and questions to look at. And within the school travel plan guidance document that we'll discuss at the end, there are tips in terms of how to conduct that walk audit and observation, including a list of things to look out for. So the other thing that you want to do is then observe the school arrival and dismissal process. So in step 3, we gathered information about that process, and now in step 4, we're actually going to go out and observe it. So is the school arrival or dismissal, you don't have to observe both, but you want to observe one of them. Is it happening like it should? You know, are walkers and busers and everyone being dismissed at once? Is the parking lot look like super chaotic and there's concerns for students to get hit by a bus or hit by a car? So these are all of the different things that you want to look at. And you want to look at the behaviors of how the various travel modes, so walkers, bicyclists, bus riders, parents picking up their kids, how they all interact. You want to identify concerns that could be addressed through education, encouragement, or enforcement strategies. So after you've kind of done these walking audit and observed the school arrival or dismissal, as a team, you're going to develop the top 5 issues impacting a student's ability to safely walk or bike to school within your community. And these top 5 issues should be a combination of infrastructure, so the engineering component of Safe Route, or the non-infrastructure, the other 4 E's, such as education, encouragement, enforcement, or evaluation. And then equity is included within all of that. So this is a sample of the top 5 issues identified by a school. And so the first key issue was criminal activity near the school. And then underneath each key issue, they describe why that's a problem. So for this school, the police had noted criminal activity around the school, creating a safety issue. Bicycles that were not sufficiently secure had been stolen from the school, and then barking dogs were safety issues. Sidewalks and pathways were their second issue, intersections and crossing, drivers' behaviors, and then adults to bicycle or walk with. So as you know, this is going to look very different for every community, but that's what you guys are going to take all the information you gathered in step 3 while you were doing the observation and the walking audit, and really identify what are those top 5 issues. So then the next step is to develop countermeasure recommendations for the key issues that you identified. So what is a countermeasure? A countermeasure is a safety treatment or corrective activity designed to alleviate a safety problem or a potential hazardous condition. And so we're going to identify countermeasures that are both non-infrastructure, so the education, enforcement, evaluation, and encouragement strategies, as well as the infrastructure or the engineering. So let's first talk about the non-infrastructure countermeasures. So these are going to address behavior-related school travel issues around the 4 non-infrastructure E's, which are education, encouragement, enforcement, and evaluation. By the end, you're going to know these 6 E's off the top of your head. So your team is going to create a 12-month activity calendar to help the team with those strategies. And so this is what the activity calendar looks like. So the top line is when you're going to plan for that countermeasure, and then the second line is when you're going to implement it. Don't worry, there are tons and tons of resources out there to help you identify potential non-infrastructure countermeasures. So there are a lot of resources that we'll talk about at the end. There's a whole toolkit available for schools and communities, but you'll also come up with your own ideas as you're going through this process and as you start to really kind of become familiar with the 6 E's. But this activity calendar is a required part of the school travel plan. There's not a certain number of non-infrastructure countermeasures that you want to have, but you want to be realistic in what your school and community can accomplish within a 12-month period. Remember, your school travel plan is a fluid document, so after you complete the first 12 months, you can go back and create a second activity calendar for the next school year as well. So when we look at the infrastructure countermeasures, which are those engineering strategies, so these are going to change the actual environment around the school and community. You want to identify short, medium, and long-term treatments that will make walking and bicycling to school safer. You're going to create a table summarizing the infrastructure countermeasures, as well as develop a map depicting the locations of all the infrastructure countermeasure recommendations that your team has identified. During this phase, it's highly recommended that teams involve an engineer or planner when developing your infrastructure countermeasures. It's really helpful at this point to have the engineer or planner help you develop for you a detailed cost estimate for each of the countermeasures that you've identified. This information is going to be needed when you apply for the infrastructure funds during the ODOT Safe Routes to School grant application. So it's helpful that as you're in this planning process, developing your school travel plan, to go ahead and get those detailed cost estimates and to involve an engineer or planning to make sure what you're recommending is feasible and meets kind of all the codes and regulations. So this is a sample infrastructure countermeasure table that will be created within your school travel plan. So because they're all mapped, all of the countermeasures get a number. You're going to identify the location of it, what that issue is in that area, what the countermeasure is, so how are you going to address that issue? Is it a short-term, medium, or long-term countermeasure? What's the priority based on how many students are going to be impacted by addressing this issue? What's the estimated cost? And then also looking at additional funding sources outside of the Safe Routes to School program. So you're going to go through and develop this table for all of the infrastructure countermeasures identified by your school. This table I know probably seems a little overwhelming, but as you go through the process, we promise that it's not, and your planner or engineer will be very helpful during this phase.
So once you've gone through those countermeasures and identified the infrastructure and non-infrastructure countermeasures, you'll want to share your plan with the community and gather public input. Public input can be gathered in a variety of ways. It can be at a council meeting, PTA meeting, at community organizations, any nonprofits in the area, rec centers, We Thrive teams, of course. You can also interview key stakeholders and solicit student opinions. Having more than one public input meeting is encouraged because the more feedback you get from students, the community, other people, it's going to enrich the plan. You really want to be inclusive with this. So during the public input meetings, community members have the opportunity to vote for their favorite recommendations, share concerns, etc. So once you get that public input, you want to finalize the plan and get pledges of support. So you're almost done at this point. It's very exciting. Tons of work went into this. You're almost done. So you want to make updates to the school travel plan based on the feedback gathered from the public input process and get pledges of support from organizations implementing the school travel plan. It's recommended to get a one-page pledge of support for key organizations, but it's not required. A lot of times that written documentation is very useful, though. So people, agencies, and organizations that could pledge support include a school principal or superintendent, You could have a city mayor do it, a county executive, a city or county council member, PTA or PTO president, and also health departments can help. If health commissioners are aware of the community and passionate, much like at our organization, they should be happy to help. And finally, you're done! Yay, congratulations! You've completed your school travel plan. So once all the work is done, it's just a simple submission of the electronic copy of the plan to ODOT for the district Safe Routes to School coordinator. So I think right now it's Tommy Arnold.
Tommy Arnold is ours for Hamilton County.
Yeah, so that's who we have worked with in the past. And once the school travel plan is approved, you can apply for infrastructure and non-infrastructure funds.
And Tommy Arnold who's our district Safe Routes to School coordinator, does like to be involved as schools and communities are developing a school travel plan. So as you begin the process, it's probably a good idea to reach out to him too, to let you know that you're beginning to walk through this process, and that he'll be able to provide support and guidance as well. So before we wrapped up this webinar, we wanted to kind of provide you guys and let you know about resources that are out there to help you develop your school travel plan and implement a Safe Routes to School program within your school and community. So the first and most important resources that are out there are the school travel plan template and guidelines from the Ohio Department of Transportation. So the school travel plan template walks through all of the steps that we discussed today and has those tables and documents that need to be filled out already in there, which allows you, it's a Word document, you just go in and type in the information, answer the questions, fill in the tables and charts. ODOT has done a wonderful job trying to streamline the process for everyone and to make it as simple as possible. The next document that is really helpful is the school travel plan guidelines. Everything that Hannah and I went through today is within those school travel plan guidelines. That is truly the key document as you create your school travel plan. It walks you through every single step. It lets you know of all of the different questions, the resources to go, how to go about answering it. So it's definitely a very important tool to have. Like I mentioned, both of these resources are available on ODOT Safe Routes to School website. So as we were talking about the countermeasures, especially the non-infrastructure, I mentioned this non-infrastructure toolkit. This is also available on ODOT Safe Routes to School website, and this provides strategies for the 4 E's, non-infrastructure E's, of education, encouragement, enforcement, and evaluation. So it provides you with a ton of ideas on what you could potentially do within your school travel plan or within your Safe Routes to School initiative to help address the concerns and the challenges that you saw. So everything from encouragement programs to educational cards and lesson plans to how to work with the police department or create safety guards. There's a lot of really great resources in there and links to even more resources. So it's a very valuable tool to have. ODOT, through their Every Move You Make campaign, has done a lot of work to create resources for communities that are easy and ready to made that can just go and be implemented within the community or school. One of those resources that we wanted to point out is K-8 lesson plans. So these are lesson plans that can be incorporated within the school day that talk about the importance of walking and bicycling, the importance of physical activity, how to walk safely, how to ride your bike safely, all of those things. So it's a great education tool, and it's already developed for you. It's aligned to standards. So it should be a great resource both for your Safe Routes to School team as well as for your school as you're trying to implement. Maybe one of the things you identified is that students don't know how to cross the street safely. Well, this resource, this K-8 lesson plan, has information about crossing the street safely and how to incorporate it into different grades. So it's definitely a great resource. So every move you make through ODOT definitely is a great starting point. It has the resources that we've mentioned. There's also the National Safe Routes to School Center, and so this is the place that has the data. They have the student tally as well as the parent survey available to download. The parent survey is available in English and Spanish as well. And so, but they also have lots of other great resources around Safe Routes to School. The Safe Routes to School National Partnership has everything and anything under the sun related to Safe Routes to School. The information that was presented at the beginning of this presentation, kind of the Safe Routes 101, is from the Safe Routes to School National Partnership. So they have resources on how to present Safe Routes to School to people who may not understand, how to explain the importance. They have data. They have, how to implement the program, what's worked in other places, what hasn't worked. And it's a national program, so it's all across the U.S., so you're able to get ideas from a diverse number of groups and figure out ways, maybe the program may not work perfectly in your community, but how could you adapt some of the other ideas that are out there to work within your community and school? We're all about trying to not recreate the wheel, but find programs that work and implement them within our communities. And then the last website that we wanted to point out is the Walk Bike to School website. This provides resources if you are hosting a national walk or bicycle to school day. It also encourages you to register your event so that it can be promoted and potentially even win some prizes. So there's lots of great resources on there in terms about how do you plan for that event, how do you promote it, what are things you need to identify, resources. So, and then of course, the health educators here at Hamilton County Public Health are available for schools if they're interested in safe routes, and then for any of the We Thrive communities that are interested in safe routes, we're here to help provide support and guidance. We've walked 3.5 schools now through the school travel plan process. So we, definitely can be that health representative on your team and help you guys as you walk through this process. We're here to help provide support. So that's the end of our presentation today, so we thank you for joining. If you're on the computer and interested in downloading our presentation, I've shared a link within the chat box. You should be able to click on that link and our presentation will open so that you can save it onto your computer. This presentation has been recorded and will be shared out through the We Thrive YouTube channel as well. So we'll take a few minutes, and if there's any questions, we'll open it up for questions now. You can type your questions into the chat box, or if you are on the phone, you can go ahead and talk. I believe you have to hit *6 to unmute yourself, and then you'll be able to talk. So it looks like that there aren't any questions, which I hope that means that Hannah and I did a fabulous job presenting this today and you understand everything perfectly. But as you go about and digest the information that was shared and have questions, feel free to reach out to your health educator or one of us at the health department, and we can help answer those questions. Please let us know if this is something that you're interested in doing within your school or community. We'd love to kind of help provide support and even promote the work that you're doing within the community. So thank you again for joining us. We will, like I said, this is being recorded, and so we'll share it out on our YouTube channel. So if you're interested in sharing that with others, be on the lookout for that. Thanks. Have a wonderful day. Perfect.